From Dead to the World by Charlene Harris. My gran had always told me that a woman, any woman worth her salt, could do whatever she had to.
Welcome back to the Reading Room Ruffians, your favorite library podcast. Our supreme overlord Carla is captain of the crazy house today, and it seems as though she's had the straitjackets brought in.
I made them myself.
My BFF Ariel, committed for being bad company and reading novels, is here to weigh in during group therapy.
It's not the only reason I'm crazy.
Finally, it's me, Mallory, and I'm here because I drink bad whiskey, subjective, and because I live an immoral life. We are recording here at our library in Jackson County, West Virginia. Dr. Zach, joining us from Seattle, Washington, is prescribing one episode to cure any insanity you may feel coming on.
I feel like it's going to take more than one episode.
Very fair. We're still doing summer reading, so we'll skip what we're doing in the library this time. So we'll get right into it. Carla?
Okay, my nonfiction book pick was The Woman They Could Not Silence. One Woman, Her Incredible Fight for Freedom, and the Man Who Tried to Make Her Disappear by Kate Moore. This book read like some kind of thriller movie or horror movie at times that you would watch on TV. And there was times I literally wanted to just scream, oh, just be quiet, just shut up.
Yeah.
Because I was so afraid for her throughout this book. And it's just absolutely ridiculous what she went through. She was married to a man who was 14 years older than her. Her dad arranged it, but his name was Theophilus Packard, and her name's Elizabeth. And he was a minister. He was a Presbyterian minister. And they moved to Illinois from, I can't remember where it was in the east, but somewhere in the east. And she had 6 kids by him. She had 3 boys, a daughter, and then 2 more boys. When the youngest was about a year or 2 old, she started expressing her own opinions. And she was incredibly charismatic. And she was very well spoken and incredibly intelligent, which did not make her husband very happy because he was not those things.
Yeah.
He didn't have the speaking ability.
Yeah.
He didn't have the speaking ability and the charisma she had. And she thought completely outside the box when it came to a lot of his belief systems.
Yeah.
And it was starting to really get on his nerves. She started Bible studies and was kind of in his church and was kind of going against his teachings, thinking that, women had rights too. I don't know what she was thinking there.
How dare she?
I know. But it comes down to it. She aggravates him to the point that he's going to have her committed because a husband could have his wife committed during this time, which was the 1800s.
Yeah.
For any reason whatsoever. Mm-hmm. And having a different religious philosophy than they had to mean she was crazy.
Yeah.
And the thought that women had rights, well, definitely, she was totally insane. So he literally locked her in her room, boarded up or nailed up the shutters, and had people, unbeknownst to her, sign off that she was crazy because he had to have 2 slips for other people saying she was crazy, which was easy to do because it was his parishioners. Anyway. And he committed her to the Illinois State Mental Hospital. Yeah.
I already want him dead.
Well, yeah. She was more forgiving than I would have been.
Yeah.
The doctor there that ran that facility was Dr. McFarland. And he was basically of the same mindset that a lot of men, not all of them by any means, but a lot of them at that time held that, women, if they had independent thoughts that differed anything from their husbands, they had to be insane.
Yeah.
But when she got there, she was when she spoke to people, she was very intelligent. She was very kind. She was considerate. She was basically a good person. She just had wild beliefs that women had rights and had their own mind, and they should be able to speak their own thoughts. She was treated exceptionally well at first.
Yeah.
She was given the keys to unlock her room and walk around wherever she wanted to on the grounds and stuff like that. She was definitely the pet of the facility.
Yeah.
She had many more. What am I trying to say? Many more perks, yeah, but that was not the word, but that works.
Yeah.
Perks that than anyone else did. And she made friends with the people on her
maybe?
ward. Kind of, yeah. She was given free reign where other ones weren't.
Yeah.
Sure.
Other women on her, the ward, she was on the best ward.
Yeah.
At first. I think it was Ward 5, with other women, genteel type women. And she made friends and she spoke with them. And she was pretty sure that they weren't crazy either. They were perfectly sane women that just got locked in there because of their husbands.
Yeah.
Because they disagreed with them. And she started a Bible study group there, which she didn't learn any. Which was what made me so nervous about her, because she was so adamant with her beliefs.
Yeah.
That she didn't back down ever, even when you're thinking, oh, just be quiet. But she didn't. Anyway, and she was kind of stirring up the people, and the staff liked her, but she got to noticing mistreatment of inmates on other wards. And she started bringing this to Dr. McFarlane. And basically she told him either he could make good on this and fix it and, all would be forgiven, or when she got out, the world was going to hear about it.
Oh, baby.
Yeah. Well,
was going to hear about what exactly?
The abuses.
Oh, no, the when she got out.
When she got out.
Sorry, yeah. I misheard that.
About it. Yeah. When she got out, the world was going to hear about it. She had, I have a quote here. I'll find it in a little bit. But of course, that didn't go well. And it got to the point where he moved her to the 7th Ward. And these people were more on the actual insane.
Yeah.
A lot of it was trauma-based, it seemed like, just from their reactions to things and what had happened. But even there were some that were perfectly sane. They just wouldn't shut up either. And there she made friends. The staff liked her. She got extra benefits. And this whole time, she's writing down stuff. She's keeping like this secret journal. And she would hide it in like the craziest places. And she started writing her book.
Yeah.
And she would get little scraps of paper. She would write in the margins of her Bible. I mean, it was all kinds of, anywhere she could find to write, she would write. Because at first she had her own little room and she was given as much stationery and stuff as she wanted. But when she moved to this Ward 7, they took all that away.
Yeah.
And that's when she started. She wrote on the inside of her bonnet. She stuffed stuff into her clothes. She hid it in her clothes, like little scraps of paper and stuff, so that she could record all this stuff. And she enlisted another woman on Ward 7. And she started doing the same thing. They were keeping notes.
Yeah.
So to record their experience, so they wouldn't forget it. It wouldn't be like biased because they wrote it as it happened.
Yeah.
And it was a lot of the abuses. I mean, it was not uncommon for people to be beaten or choked if they did anything that was even slightly considered out of line.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like they didn't move fast enough.
Yeah.
And when she first got to this Ward 7, the people were filthy because they didn't have any bathtubs. So she took it upon herself that she was going to take care of these people. And she started cleaning them and taking care of them and made the place nicer. And the staff got involved with her.
Yeah.
And this is when she made a really close friend with one of I think it was like the cook or something like that. And she offered to help her when she quit work, and she was going to write a letter too about all the stuff that went on. Well, she had caused so much mischief on this ward, they moved her to Ward 8, which was the violent people. I mean, literally, she got hit so hard one time, she laid in bed for days.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, and there was nothing for them to grab up eating utensil and try to like stab you with it or throw things. It was very violent.
Dang.
Even here, though, she was making some friends. And at this point, McFarlane's wife took pity on her and was like sneaking her little things and helping her out. Not once did she ever back down. And she kept saying stuff like, if you don't fix this when I get out.
Yeah.
Because she knew she was sane. And when there was no point in this, she really doubted her sanity.
Yeah.
Which is, I think that's a big deal.
Yeah. I mean, she was incredibly strong-minded.
Yeah.
So let me see if I can find that quote. I mean,
if I was her, I would be worried about being able to get out, honestly.
I would too.
Yeah.
I mean, I would be terrified of that, not getting out.
Like they got bad records of just keeping people indefinitely back in the day. Some of the
women had been there like 6 years at this point already.
Yeah.
Anyway, she talks about, I can't find the quote right now, but it's about you will feel the wrath of my pen, where she was going to write about everything.
Yeah.
And at one point he was like, oh, well, yeah, maybe we'll get your book published and stuff like that. So she gave him the manuscript.
No.
Oh, yeah. I was like, what are you thinking?
Oh, baby.
What are you thinking? I know. She trusted, because she didn't see bad in people.
Yeah.
She always saw good. And if they tried to do anything nice, she was like, oh, okay, it'll be okay. And I'll forgive you and life will go on. And he wouldn't give it back.
Yeah.
So she wrote this letter saying, it was like this, one of her really dumber moments. It's like, I will basically be your wife in the next life. If you will just give me this back, I promise. Yeah. She was giving everything, basically her soul to him, if he would give her back that manuscript.
Yeah.
he kept that letter, which she shouldn't have written it to begin with, because it was like documentation, which comes into play later in a court case. But
Sure.
eventually he gives her back the manuscript.
Yeah.
And she has made such a fuss this whole time that at one of the board meetings, or when there's coming up on a board meeting, she asks to speak to the board.
Mm-hmm.
And he says yes. And it shocks her. So she explains to the board she's not crazy. You know, she's a perfectly sane woman, you know, on and on and on. And eventually she gets out after 3 years, only because he's just fed up with her.
Yeah.
It's like, I can't do anything else with this. You know, she's driving me crazy. It's like she gets out. And her cousin, who I think her husband had to say it's okay if she leaves, but she will be in the custody of her cousin.
Yeah.
And her cousin was more like her sister. So she gets her out. And the people in there are like, yeah, you know, we're going to get help now, stuff like that. But she goes back to her cousin's house and she had nothing.
Yeah.
Because everything that she had, her personal possessions, basically belonged to her husband. She has only the clothes on her back.
Yeah.
Which is ridiculous.
Probably would have taken those too if he could have.
Probably.
For sure.
So she stays with her cousin for a while, and the town is behind her. And even in her town that she came from, there were a lot of citizens that supported her. But it didn't matter because the laws were on the side of the husband. Yeah. So she can't stand to be away from her kids. She wanted to go back to her kids. So what does she do? What's the last thing you would do? Go back to the husband?
Mm-hmm.
She does. She goes back to that house
because of your kids.
Yeah,
but I would try to figure out a way to just take my kids.
Well, I mean, she could have divorced him,
could have
but
murdered
back
him.
then women didn't get custody of their children.
Yeah.
Oops, you had an accident.
Well, you know, I thought about that. I thought, because I was so worried for her through this whole book. I was like, oh no, because I didn't know how it ended, and I refused to go to the back and read.
Yeah. I just really want to know who was taking care of their kids. Because
he was.
He really was, though?
Well, not really. I mean, it was the 12-year-old daughter.
That sounds right.
I was going to say, yeah.
Because there was one daughter, and she got stuck in the role of the housekeeper and the caregiver, which turns out it traumatized her later. But, yeah, he really didn't do much. And I think his, like, prudish sister, you know, had stuff in it too. Anyway, it was just a mess. It was a bad thing because he was just a piece of work. But anyway, she goes back to the house. She just walks in like she should be there.
Yeah.
And at first the kids are afraid to listen to her and do what she says because he's in the background saying, you know, you don't do this, you know. And eventually they start coming around and paying attention to her.
Yeah.
And this whole time he's finding another mental institution to put her in, and he finds one in Massachusetts. Yeah, like halfway across the country that'll take her.
Oh my gosh.
And he's hunting he has people come in and interview her, and she's starting to get suspicious at this point.
Yeah.
And one doctor poses as a sewing machine salesman.
Yeah.
To interview her. Well, he gets his couple signatures that he needs. But while he's waiting on this stuff, he locks her back in her room and nails the shutters closed. Okay.
Oh my God.
Well, the cousin and one of her friends they're like, you've got to get out of there. Well, she can't.
Yeah.
So they talk to her through literally nailed shutters that are nailed shut. And at this point, they managed to get her a trial because she's being detained unlawfully.
Yeah.
Without without any necessity to it.
Without reasonable cause.
Yeah. It's habeas corpus. I think she is what she wanted. Because they wouldn't do that at first because he had all the rights and she was crazy. It wasn't an illegal detention. So anyway, she finally gets her trial, and she thinks everyone who is going to be committed should get a trial by jury to prove that they're crazy instead of just on taking the husband's word.
Yeah.
Because at this point in time, married women had less rights than a single woman. Mm-hmm. Because once they married, they gave themselves and everything they owned to the husband. And they gave away everything.
Yep.
Which is...
I would have been a spinster.
Legitimately.
Well, maybe. The way things were. I mean...
the mentality that I have, if I had it then, I'd have been a spinster. Or...
It depends on how you were raised. I mean, it's like a lot of these women didn't have a choice.
Harlot.
Well, there you go.
We're the best of both worlds.
But anyway, they managed to get, and a justice of the peace showed up, or some law enforcement, I can't remember who it was, showed up at the door, and he had like hours to get her to the courthouse for this trial. So they're like, yay. And it comes to find out he does have good lawyers, though.
Yeah.
So he didn't have time to like do anything. He had like just enough time to get from his house to the courthouse in a different city. And she got her trial. And the whole time, I mean, she had a lawyer that volunteered his time, and he was a really good lawyer too.
Yeah.
I mean, these were like some big name lawyers at the time fighting against each other over this. It made the papers. I mean, people were like coming to support her. And they were asking like the doctors that had signed off on it. It's like, why was she insane? It's like, well, she had a different religious opinion, so she has to be insane. That was the main focus. Yep. She believed differently than her husband, so she had to be insane. And one of the men that testified that she had changed her religion, so she had to be insane, had changed his religion to become the Presbyterian that, like her husband.
Yeah.
So it's like it was okay for him, but, if a woman did it, it had to be crazy.
Yep.
Well, anyway, things were going bad for Theophilus. And the community was in support of her because she was not a crazy person and she was being mistreated and oppressed. The weekend before the verdict was given, like when they made their closing arguments and stuff like that, after they left the court one evening, Theophilus was accosted by some townspeople. Basically, it's like, this is not going to end well for you. So the last 2 days, he didn't show up for the trial.
Yeah.
Well, the court, was gone for like just minutes. It wasn't very long at all. And they were like, she's perfectly sane.
Yeah.
So, and when she was all thrilled and tickled and she went to go home, and when she got to the house, everything was gone. Everything. Even her clothes were gone.
What a coward.
He had left and went to Massachusetts with the kids.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
And she was just devastated at this point.
Taking her clothes, that's like insult to injury.
Yeah. And it was
like, not only am I taking everything that makes a house and a home and your children, but also you have no clothes, so good luck with that.
Yeah. Anyway, the town helped her and stuff like that, but she decided that she was going to raise the alarm against Dr. McFarlane and this whole women's rights stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And she just couldn't deal with it anymore. So remember, this is 1860s.
Mm-hmm.
She, by herself, they loan her some money from the town. They make a collection, and she gets on a train and she goes to Chicago. She's going to have her pamphlet printed.
Girl.
The one that says, Miss Packard's reproof to Dr. McFarlane for his abuse of his patients. It's like a 30-some page pamphlet.
No beating around the bush there.
She's like this the whole time. It's like, this is wrong. This is what you're doing.
Yeah.
When I talked about where she had to clean the people, they decided to put in like bathtubs for these people, but that turned out to be a torture device because they would basically hold their head underwater until they couldn't deal with it anymore.
Yeah.
So even the stuff that was supposed to give them some dignity turned out to be a torture device.
I've read books where they do that.
Yeah.
They do ice baths.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's what it was. It was all cold. Yeah. So they were really abusive to these women.
Mm.
I mean, I'm sure stuff went on in the men's ward too, but of course you don't hear that because she wasn't there.
Yeah.
But anyway, she goes to Chicago and she finds a publisher. And the amount to publish this pamphlet was like astronomical, and they wanted it up front. I mean, she had to go through several to find someone that would like even speak to a woman.
Yeah.
Well, so what does she do? She does the original, as they call in the book, crowdfunding. She literally goes door to door and sets up in different places and pre-sells her book or her pamphlet till she has enough money to have it published.
Yeah, girl.
And this is what she's doing the whole time.
Yeah.
Even other ones, she goes like, and she makes like thousands of dollars, which if Theophilus had done anything about it, he could have taken it all.
Yeah.
Because anything she made could have been taken by him.
Yeah.
I was worried the whole time. It's like, oh, no, no, no. And then she starts going to legislators and governors and stuff like that to have bills passed where people had to have a jury. You couldn't just commit your wife. You had to go before a jury. There was better treatment for the people that were there. There was all these laws that had to go into place. And she also had she wanted to talk about women's rights too.
Yeah.
Because she thought that women should be this is what she would say: put women into your ballot boxes, your legislatures, your senates, your Congress, your president's chair.
Man, she was ahead of her time.
I mean, like 100 years ahead of her time. But she was.
I mean, that sounds pretty radical for nowadays. I don't know if we want to do that.
But it's like she was like really, really ahead of her time. But she was. I really think the woman was probably a genius.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And had the backbone of
I don't even
like
know.
Iron Man, you know. It's like, it was like, she was just incredible. And she didn't stop. Well, she eventually ended up getting a law passed about the treatment and stuff like that. But there was no teeth to it.
Yeah.
There was no punishment if you didn't do it. So she went back and had that done. And they imposed fines and imprisonment if, stuff happened that wasn't supposed to. And they got to call on these laws, Packard's laws.
Yeah.
Because she was that much of an advocate. It was her bills and her. And she actually presented some of them on Senate floors. I mean, she got to read the bills.
Dang.
And men were supportive of her. And they saw, there was a lot of good men that backed her at the time, which she needed because she couldn't have done it without them.
Mm-hmm.
So, but there was also a lot of McFarlanes out there too, and Theophiluses.
Yeah.
So she eventually gets this, she's working in Illinois. Okay. Then guess where she goes next to work on stuff?
Massachusetts.
Yes. Well, I'm thinking, what are you thinking? There is a certificate saying you could be committed there and you'll never get out. Yep. And that's where your husband's at. And that's where you go to work on laws. But she's successful there too. She was just amazing about just bold in your face.
Yeah.
Here I am. You're going to have to deal with me. This needs fixed.
Yeah.
And she got a lot of stuff fixed. Eventually, she became very wealthy with her books, and because she printed other ones about her experience actually in the asylum, those little notes she scribbled around and everything.
Yeah.
She had notes from other inmates. And I forgot to mention this part. When she got that first law passed, everyone who was in an asylum got a trial.
Oh, nice.
So everybody. But when the one at Illinois, they got their trial, no one was released. They were all found insane. And she felt she had failed her sisters there.
Yeah.
Come to find out later, she found out that there was a huge release of patients beforehand. And every one of the ones that she knew was sane had been released. So she did help them.
Yeah.
They just didn't want to have the trials because that would have been expensive?
Well, no, because they would have been found out that these people were sane. And they were locking up sane people because...
Yeah.
And it was all McFarlane. He was like, this one goes. Because he knew they were sane.
Yep.
Yeah.
He was just being...
A butt.
A butt, yeah. He had all this control. He had all this, authority. And through this whole thing, even with all this abuse being known, his reputation was never tarnished, really. He kept his job, even though there was an independent group that went in, which she got that passed to investigate the claims of abuse and stuff like that, and recommended to have him fired. But the board wouldn't do it. They were just all this tight-knit group of people.
Very cliquish.
Yeah, it was like the good old boys club. This is basically what this was. And
also, they would have had to have admitted that they were wrong about this the whole time. Yeah.
And they didn't. So they couldn't do that because, oh my God, how could a woman prove them wrong? This was the attitude of these people.
Yep.
Gasp.
So shocking.
So, yeah. So this is an amazing book. I was literally on the edge of my seat many times. It's like, oh, honey, just don't do this. Don't do this. You're in it. They're going to get you again.
Yeah.
But they didn't. But she did help the people in the institution. But it was funny. They did all this stuff undercover, kind of. Like they snuck it out. They snuck the bad ones out, and they left the ones that were really messed up in there. But it was years before she found that out. A couple of years.
Yeah.
But anyway, she ended up being very wealthy. She was very well known with the legislatures in many states. She was the most well-spoken and convincing person. I mean, it was hard to listen to her speak and not be convinced by her arguments.
Yeah.
She could just, one of those people that could just plug you right in. And in the end, she ends up, Theophilus moves to the same city. I think they're back in Chicago or Illinois somewhere. He lives about a mile from her house, and they would go to church with her. And she had all of her kids back. She got all of her kids back.
Yay!
They lived with her. They were all happy and, and stuff. And he was she never divorced, even though at one point she filed for divorce. But they didn't, something, I can't remember what it was that happened. It was something that if she didn't get divorced, it would have been better for her than if she had of.
Yeah.
Some kind of legal thing. So anyway, he ends up dying alone in a room by himself. He's like, I know. But her daughter, the one who got stuck with all that responsibility at a young age, ended up committing, she died. She kind of went like nuts. Aww. She did go kind of insane and depression and trauma and stuff like that. She ends up dying.
That's awful.
Elizabeth lived to a ripe old age. And in the epilogue, it's over the next decades, after she started, She, by her own reckoning, she secured the passage of 34 bills and 44 legislatures across 24 states.
Okay.
Dang.
She campaigned for women's equal rights and for the rights of the mentally ill. The former, tellingly, was usually much harder than the latter. So it was harder to get women's rights than the rights for the mentally insane. And she has achieved widespread, long-lasting change, including, for example, the establishment of independent bodies that inspected asylums with the power to go above the Board of Trustees. Remarkably, in certain states, she was even successful about assisting a woman bee in the inspection group. So that she went into. But anyway, she did, most of those laws are called Packard's laws because they were named after her.
That's awesome.
Oh, this was an amazing, amazing book. And there is so much that I haven't covered, the little stuff that you're like, oh my gosh, it's like, please be quiet, please be quiet. They're going to kill you this time.
Yeah.
And she was incredibly, the whole time, she's incredibly forgiving, incredibly loving, incredibly kind.
She didn't let all that hate and stuff
No, she did not
bring her down or take away who she was.
Mm-mm. She was an amazing, amazing person. This is an incredibly good book. I would highly recommend it to anyone.
I really do want to read it. I was very scared just because, the subject matter.
It has a good ending, so I'll just give you that so you can read it without being
not
terrified
nearly-
like I was.
That will make me way less.
It's not nearly as heavy as The Radium Girls,
Oh, man.
who I think Kate Moore also wrote.
Yeah.
She did, yes.
Yeah. That one was
Which
rough.
is what I was worried about. That's why I hadn't read it, because I was like, I can't handle another
I
heavy
thought they
book
were
right
going to kill her.
now.
I thought she was really going to go insane.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
I couldn't finish Radium Girls. That one was,
That one was
too rough for me.
It took me so long to read that book because it was so heavy.
I think I made it, I don't even know how many chapters. I didn't make it very far in before I was literally like, I can't do this. I am so angry and upset.
Yeah, there were so many times I had to stop the book and walk away.
Yeah.
Or like I was like, oh my God. Like that one was heavy. So that's why I didn't want to read that one.
this one, it has a good ending, and she is incredibly bold and courageous and did so much stuff on her own in truly a man's world at this point that it was incredible.
I love that.
Absolutely incredible. The thought of her going door to door and selling books, though.
I
She would
love
set up
that.
stands and sell books. She told everybody who would listen what happened.
I love that.
And
Old
most
school
people
Kickstarter right there.
Yeah.
Yep.
Most people were on her side. They didn't, I don't think people realize the
I was
amount
gonna say,
of
I don't
abuse
think a lot of
and
people knew.
because most people aren't that mean or that, you know.
And a lot of people, if you don't experience it yourself, you don't know that it's happening.
Right.
And it's not something that most people go out of their way to think about or learn about. I mean, that still happens today.
Yeah.
It's like, well, that's not true because I've never seen it. Well, that doesn't mean it's not real.
Really? Yeah. But it is, I would highly recommend this one. And there's literally almost, I think it's close to 75 pages of bibliography because this whole book was written from research on journals and notes, newspaper articles, stuff like that. It's like based on personal journals. Oh, and Dr. McFarlane in the end committed suicide.
Sweet karmic justice.
Kind of crazy.
You know?
Yeah. So, but he never lost his reputation. He opened his own mental institution after the one closed. It was like, he was just a manipulator.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you can see it in some of the things he did.
Guess what? He was probably a narcissist.
Mm-hmm.
So honestly, he was probably insane also.
Probably. I mean, he was something.
Yeah, I mean, clearly at some point something caught up with him. I don't know if he...
Yeah. I think he was, if I remember it right, he was injured by one of the patients and one of the men's patients.
Oh,
and it caused him pain. And I think that...
and he couldn't deal with the chronic pain.
He couldn't deal with the chronic pain. And I think all the other stuff too. There was an illusion that maybe there was some guilt there, even though he never admitted it.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, he hung himself.
Dang, that's a way to go.
So,
Oof.
yeah.
I can't believe I've never heard of this person before.
Yeah.
Me either.
Like, you'd think they would talk about this at some point in, like, just a normal, at least, I don't know, we had, like, those women's rights studies, like, what is it, the, not being, women's suffrage and whatnot.
Yeah.
And never heard about this. I mean, obviously, this was, I think it was before, right? This is
it
before.
was, but it's like, yeah, but she was such
I mean,
ahead of her time.
She
on
was
stuff.
like,
even like a psychology class
No.
in college or something, you know, like that's fairly important.
I think it's kind of like, we still think today, and I know there's stuff on the internet now and people talking about like, oh, what is this like patriarchy stuff. There's no, it's like, yeah, it's still there.
Mhm.
And it was 1971 before women were allowed to have their own bank account
Mhm.
Yeah.
without the signature of a husband or father or
I mean,
somebody.
still to this day, you can't go get your tubes tied without your
permission of your
husband's
yeah.
permission, or you have so many
Yep.
kids already.
Yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't.
And it can't be like the same gender that you have to have a boy and a girl.
Yeah, at least.
Yeah.
I know somebody that has multiple kids of each kind, and their doctor wouldn't, like, no, not doing that. It's like, why? Why?
I don't know. It's like, it's stupid. Even recently, as a couple of years ago, there was a lady who found a piece of property she wanted to buy, and she went to the bank to get a loan. And between her and her husband, she made the most money. The bank would not loan her make the loan for her without her husband's signature. A year later, he wanted to buy a piece of property, and he wouldn't sign. A year later, he wanted to buy a piece of property, but the bank would loan him the money, even though he didn't make as much, without her signature.
Where was this?
It was Auntie A.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oof.
Yeah.
Yep.
It makes me
Also,
angry.
with her too, when she wanted to get her tubes tied, the doctor didn't want to do it unless Brian signed off on it.
Yeah. It's stupid.
I mean, it's like with the adoption of Alex.
Mhm.
I was not allowed to have someone adopt Alex unless I was married to that person,
Yeah.
which is insane because they're single parents,
Yep.
you know, and there's gay parents.
Yep.
But I was not allowed unless I was married to a man.
Yep.
So there's still a lot of rights out there that women think, well, people think women have that they really don't.
Mm-mm.
It's
They're-
like anyone in the healthcare system could tell you.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Because women, we don't get the same treatment.
No.
We get told we're insane.
That happened
Or-
to me.
We're making
Overweight.
it up. Yeah.
There couldn't be a hormonal issue or anything like that.
No.
No.
But it's like there's still this like underlying, like,
Oh, it's just your period.
It's-
You're
yeah,
fine.
yeah.
You're
Yeah.
just being insane.
It's not that bad.
I mean, I went one time to the doctor because it felt like my throat was swelling. And I had allergies really, really bad at this time. Took Claritin all the time. Like I had been taking it for years. And the doctor, he was like, we'll do a barium salt, make sure there's nothing going on there. And I ran a few other tests or checked. And he basically ended up prescribing me Prozac because I was probably just like, crazy. And I literally sat on that bed they have in the exam room and looked over his shoulder at a poster on the wall
Yeah.
that said extended use of allergy medicines can cause minor swelling in your throat.
Yep.
And I thought, this is just nuts. And I should have said something, but I was like, I can't believe you prescribed me that when you have a poster
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah.
on your wall.
Yep.
So I just quit taking Claritin,
Yep.
switched up the brand. So
Gotta love it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's nuts.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard other stories like that where the doctors just do not listen and
Uh-uh.
They don't.
just make assumptions, and it's not helpful. No.
But anyway, the book is amazing. Read it. She doesn't die in the end. Well, she does, but it's like old
I mean,
age
she
stuff,
does,
it's
but
like-
apparently she's like 80
It's
years
like
old.
yeah. So it's just really good. But you don't have to worry like I did the whole time, thinking
We
the
can just
absolute worst
enjoy
was going to
it.
happen. Yeah, you could. It's like it's going to turn out good. So.
Yeah.
But there's a lot in it that I did not go over. That a lot of details of stuff that went on and the perceptions of the time. That's really illuminating, and it sheds light even on things today.
Yep.
Basically, anything associated with the sane asylums is just always the worst.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't even believe that to some degree, we still do have places like this that still exist, but it was much worse in the past, obviously. But the fact that we have ever thought it was okay to just like take people at their word and say, oh no, this person is definitely crazy, and then just keep them
Definitely.
locked up. They're just doing it for money, effectively, right? I assume.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, actually, that's a good question. How she gets put into this insane asylum? Who's paying for it? Her to be there.
I think at first because he was a minister and didn't make a lot of money that the state paid for it.
I figured
Uh-huh.
the church paid for it.
Well, later on, no, I think it was the state. Later on, when her oldest son took responsibility, she thought that she was just, it was the same type of payment. But no, at that point, they were billing the son because
Right, and he was still,
no, he was older. He was like in his 20s at this point, the oldest son.
yeah, but he was paying it.
Yeah. because he couldn't get her out. Because
Where the dad brainwashed him, I'm sure.
no, it's because he didn't want her to go to be in with. Her first two boys were old enough that they did not want her to go.
Yeah.
But they weren't of an age where they could legally stop it.
Yeah.
And because their dad had signed her in, only he could say, unless the doctor let her out.
Yeah.
Only he's the only one that could get her out. They could not.
See, this is why we need an accident.
Well,
happy little accidents.
you know, I would not have been upset during reading this book had something happened to him.
Yeah.
And I think the people in that one town were going to make sure that something happened to him if he didn't, you know. But
slow your roll.
She was a better person than I would have been.
Yeah.
A much better person.
Mm-mm.
I'm honestly very impressed that
That's
she was
because you
able to
got
keep
that rage
calm.
in there.
Do what?
I said that's because you got that rage in there.
I guess so. Yeah. It's like, I would have not been near as forgiving.
So I had looked up some of the reasons that women were committed to asylums for our opener. All of those reasons, by the way, are legitimate reasons. So reading novels.
Oh, yeah.
I would have been lobotomized for sure.
Let me see here. Kicked in the head by a horse. I mean, that one kind of makes sense.
This woman, Elizabeth, was institutionalized when she was in her teens because she had meningitis.
Yeah.
Because it was like brain fever.
Religious enthusiasm,
Oh, yeah, that was hers, yeah.
Asthma, bad company, bad habits, brain
fever. If you didn't
fever.
keep a clean house, that was a sure sign of insanity.
Yep. The congestion of brain.
Probably like brain fever.
That's not even a
stuff.
thing.
Yeah. Decoyed into the army.
Oh, it's where they dressed up as men and joined the army. Yeah.
Let me see. Superstition, women trouble, vicious vices, the war.
The war.
The war.
It's like, oh, okay, we're going to war, so let's go ahead and keep her.
Lock them up. Just lock them up now.
They have egotism. Let me see here. Excitement as officer. Exposure and hereditary. I still don't know what that means. I still don't know.
Exposure and hereditary.
Yeah. Exposure and quackery. Exposure and army.
Quackery.
Yes, quackery. Yeah. Fever and
Interesting.
jealousy. Fighting fire. How dare we put out a fire?
Oh, no. Well, and this one, it's like the doctor could not understand why she was so angry with her husband.
Yeah.
How could you actually hate your husband after he did this to you? It's like,
oh, easily? Like this. I hate him.
Yeah. Okay. So first of all, the Salvation Army is on here.
I don't know what that is.
And then also, let me see, what was the other one? Oh, seduction.
Oh, snap. See? Harlot.
I mean, there's like a ton of these things on here, but it says these were reasons for admission from 1864 to 1889. So
That's
this is
fun.
what
I
she
like
basically
asthma
got stopped.
being one.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, you couldn't breathe, so you got to be crazy.
Yep.
I mean, how hard is that? You just breathe. You just do it. Come on, lady.
Making it
And you
up.
probably got a little hysterical when you couldn't breathe.
Yep.
So there you go.
Yep. Hysteria.
No.
Hysteria was everything.
Yeah. You had any kind of emotion. You were hysterical.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was a rough time.
Completely different sort of thing. I mean, I guess it's not really. People still view things this way.
Yep.
Emotions are feminine and weak.
Yep. And make you crazy.
Yep.
And impulsive.
Hmm.
And though, how many women you know have some emotions and we sit and planning?
That's what I was doing this whole time. Thinking about it, I was like, man, I
I
could have
like-
planned a lot of
Like
stuff
the
here.
cunning.
And she never did that.
Yeah.
Never. He
Man.
did.
She's such a
He
good
was-
person. I don't.
Yeah.
Yeah. I could never.
She like said she was better than I am. Because
Yep.
I would have.
I would have been lobotomized.
For sure. Me too.
I would have bit people.
That would not have been a good plan. Trust me.
I'm
That would
sure
not
it
have been a
wouldn't,
good
but
plan.
I cannot. I would just have lost it and bit someone. It's like those
I like how
earrings
that's your
I
first thing
found.
to go to is bite somebody, not smack or hit or whatever. It's bite 'em.
No.
Well, by then she probably would have.
I mean, if somebody has a hold of me and I can't, claw their eyes out, we're biting.
That's the
You're just going
straight
to be put in there
jackets.
for being feral.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, it should just be in there now.
Yeah. Heathenism.
You leave my grippy socks alone.
The straight jackets and a lot of the clothes and stuff that the
yeah.
women wore in these asylums, they had to make themselves.
Yeah.
It was saved money.
Yep.
It was free labor.
Yep.
So
I
they
mean, that's
made
just the modern prison complex.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I was going to say that still happens now.
I'll tell you, so this is kind of interesting. So we had Robert Coombs, the murder boys. And while he was in an institution over in England, this was 20 years after Elizabeth here. So also over in England, his treatment was way better. It was, they had jobs, but they got paid for it. And, they had stuff set up after they were released. And it was just like,
yep.
Think about that. That was a men's prison.
Yep.
Versus.
And that was a prison.
Yeah.
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 You can't treat crazy people well.
Like
That's
humans?
nonsense.
Yeah.
No, they're not anymore. They're crazy people.
Yeah.
Don't
so
you know
that
anything?
was just, we sat here.
Evidently
I looked
not.
it
I'm
up because I
feral.
was like, I really am interested in knowing what the time frame is because it was around the same. Yeah. The 20 years after.
I just want to say.
I think she had went through menopause. This is me personally. And at that point, you get just like, this stuff just ain't right.
Mm-hmm.
And you start seeing things slightly differently. I watched a TED Talk one time about how, women are supposed to be so emotional because of their hormone fluctuations and stuff like that.
Oh, is this about the testosterone?
Yes.
Oh, my
and this
God.
these were medical doctors, but they were female medical doctors, but they were doctors. And it's like women know when their moods are going to change because it's a cycle they get used to. They adapt to it.
And we know. I mean, if I'm
know.
being absolutely outrageous, guess what?
You know it, and
Within the next 3 to 4 days.
Yeah. And we also know how to moderate it.
I do, yeah.
But it changes in a normal cycle most of the time. The ebbs and flows. Men's hormones change in an instant. Like they could see something that they find attractive, their hormone spike. They could get mad at somebody, their hormone spike. I mean, it's not
a gradual thing.
Not a gradual thing, and it's also not a cycle type thing. It's not like, this is going to happen. Like it could happen like 20 times a day, where ours is like over a month.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, it's like, so we're not the ones that are having the hormone issues. Men have more hormone issues and more hormone spikes and irregularities than women do.
And the thing is, they say we're the most emotional and the most outrageous when we are on our, menstrual cycle.
Mm-hmm.
We have the most testosterone in our body then.
Yep.
We are the most like a man
at that point.
But no, we're crazy.
Yeah. But I just think it's like, it's where the medicine has not, it's just now starting to realize that, hey, women's bodies are different from men's bodies.
Shocker.
And we need to learn. But it's like, we need to do things.
It's like babies didn't have feelings.
Yeah, yeah.
I sent a video in chat the other day about a woman making a song that was like, we haven't studied the female body at all.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is a bop. Because
it is a bop.
It was actually really good. But it's legitimate.
And I don't think it's because they have set out to not study it. It's just because
it
was mostly done by men, and you just it's like seatbelts. Seatbelts in a car are not designed for women.
Yeah.
Mine chokes me to death because men make the cars, so they make sure they're comfortable, but not for a smaller body.
They strangle me half the time.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that they're going out of their way to do these things to be a butt, but because they're just not thinking.
Yeah. Well,
you see things from your perspective.
Why ask somebody else? You know what I mean? Why do that?
Oh my gosh, it's just a seatbelt. Why would you do that?
Yeah.
But it's like you don't until you start paying attention. Well, the person that invented the sewing machine was a man.
Mm-hmm.
Why wasn't it a woman? Because she was so busy all the time, she didn't have time to. And the husband watched his wife. Seriously, the husband watched his wife and his daughters constantly struggle at this, and he's like, "There's got to be a better way." They haven't.
And I assume he had the means as the main
observant.
thing.
Yeah, and the intelligence, I guess, to figure it out. But because I think sewing machines are like magic things. How that thread sticks like that is just amazing.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's like it takes someone sometimes from the outside looking in and seeing the struggles to realize what's going on and to fix it.
Yep. And it really takes, it's not only just seeing the struggle, but actually speaking up for it. Yeah. Saying, hey.
And I'm not trying to bash men on this at all.
Yeah.
It's like there's a lot of and she wouldn't have got anything done had there not been men helping her and seeing.
No, because of the power structure of the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it really is, it's just taking the initiative to back something or say, hey, maybe this person's right. Maybe we should at least think about it and look into it.
Yeah.
It's not that you have to go and do something immediately. It's just taking that extra, 5 minutes to listen to somebody?
Yeah.
Like,
maybe there's a point here. Maybe there's some legitimate concerns.
Yep.
So anyway, it's highly recommend this one. I absolutely loved it.
Yeah, I am probably gonna.
I would listen to it. I listen to it because the woman who reads it changes her voices when she reads what she has quoted from Elizabeth.
Oh yeah,
and the language is so much more eloquent than we have now.
Yeah. Do we have that in Libby?
Yes, that's where I listen to it.
Cool.
I still have it checked out because I thought maybe one of you guys would want it, but I'll return it now.
I think I have it on hold.
Well, it's probably because I still have it.
Yeah.
So I'll return it for you. But it is really, really an eye-opening book. And oh my gosh, the courage.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think I would have been able to do that personally.
I don't think I would have. I would have not been as forgiving to begin with. But then I had the courage to take off to a city totally by myself and go door to door to strangers to sell a book that wasn't even published.
Also just the discipline of being able to keep up with this the whole time and being able to remain calm and be able to do all the extra work. It's impressive.
Yeah. Yep. Very impressive.
Yeah, she was amazing.
Very cool. They should teach us about this in school, maybe. I don't know. Maybe they do it in Illinois, because I think she did most of the stuff in Illinois, right?
Yeah. And then but the thing that tickled me the most was like she did all that in Illinois, and then she went right into the lion's den to her second one.
I was so worried whenever you asked that.
Oh my gosh, I was too. It was like, what are you doing? They're going to lock you up, and you'll never get out because no one will be there to help you. You will have no allies. But
she made it, man.
She did.
She got it done. All right. Any final thoughts?
No.
Mm-mm.
Cool.
Nope.
All right. Our next episode, we will be discussing Zach's deep dive book, Flatland by Edwin A. Abbott, followed by a book chat, and then we'll have another Curiosities. And I don't think that we've picked that one, have we?
No.
I don't think so. Okay.
No, I still haven't picked one yet.
And then we will be doing Ariel's nonfiction pick, and I think she's going with Midnight in the Garden of Eden.
I don't remember.
Okay, it was either that or Orchid Thief.
I don't remember which one I picked.
Okay. And then we'll be doing my deep dive, which I don't think I've totally picked yet either. So, surprise. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. It's time for us to sign off. But before we go, only the best libraries have librarians who don't shush you.
And don't forget, live, laugh, lobotomy.